How's everyone? Good? Thumbs up? Happy, healthy? All that good stuff? I'm going to probably dive right in. Today we're going to talk about how to drive new admissions during the pandemic. Now, the disclaimer I want to make is this isn't a topic that I can claim to be an expert on because this is the very first pandemic I've ever lived through. That said, we've helped quite a few schools so far with their marketing, and we have seen some things that are working and some things that are not working. I want to focus only on the things that are free. So there's a lot of marketing methods that cost money, and I realize that a lot of schools, especially right now, are limited as far as budget is concerned. So we're going to discuss the strategies that you can do with hopefully zero cost, zero cash out of pocket. If you have questions about some of the paid advertising mechanisms, we can absolutely go over that. Once I've gone through everything here, feel free to ask any questions you have. Because I'm presenting, it's going to be a little difficult for me to manage the chat, so bear with me if I'm putting some questions off just as I'm paying attention to what it is that I'm presenting. That said, let me go ahead and get started. I will share my screen. All right, can y'all see that? Perfect. The very first thing that we need to do when we're marketing is create a list. And this seems like a really basic, rudimentary note, but in my experience as we're helping people, companies, schools market themselves, folks tend to be really negligent here. It doesn't have to be robust. You can use Excel, you can use a yellow legal pad if you want to, you can use a CRM if you have one, but you have to have a list and you have to continue to cultivate the list. There's a saying in marketing that the money is in the list. If you don't have a list, you don't have anybody to market to. It's also okay to have a small list. You might say, hey, I have a list of 20 people. That's fine. That's a great starting point. Make a list of everyone you have, and then segment that list according to who these people are to you. So some notes for you. This isn't a comprehensive a breakdown, but this is at least where I would start. Make sure that you have anybody who's a prospect. So any prospective families that you know may be interested. And I would go back. So if somebody toured your infant program 2 years ago, then it stands to reason that they might be interested in a toddler program today. So it's okay to go back to people that for whatever reason have chosen not to enroll, engaged with you previously, asked questions. Your email is probably a gold mine. So if you have an admissions inbox, check the inbox and see who's asked you questions. And again, I think you can go back 24 months reasonably. And we'll talk about how to re-engage some of those conversations here in just a minute. But make sure you have a list of your prospects. I would create a list of previous families. And when you're building these lists, make sure that you're segmenting them because we don't want to send all of our messaging to all of our lists. That's a catastrophic error in the realm of marketing communication. You want to be able to speak to people based off of where they are in relationship to you. Think of marketing as relationship building. And the only way to build a healthy relationship is to communicate with people in a way that they know they matter to you. And contextualizing communication is the best way to do that. So have a list of your alumni, and we're going to talk about how to use that in just a minute. Strategic partners. This is really important for schools. You may have feeder schools in both directions. You could have schools that feed into you. You could have schools that you feed into. But list who those people are from a community standpoint, because we now want to be able to speak to them. I would like to call the situation that we're in unique. I know we're all sick of hearing that, but it's true. And I also think that it's worthy of some drastic measures. And we're going to talk about what I think needs to happen from a strategic partner standpoint. Make a list of all your existing students and families. This, by the way, is probably going to be your most powerful marketing channel, believe it or not. So make sure that you have them and make sure that you have contact information. You know how to get a hold of them. And that they become used to hearing from you. That's another really important thing too. You want people to get acclimated to your email showing up in your inbox or your caller ID showing up on their phone. So have a list of your existing students and then make a list of your lost students. Anybody who's chosen not to come back this year for whatever reason, let's have them listed too, because there's a lot that we can do to redeem. We call it redemption campaigns, but there's a lot that we can do to bring those people back into the fold. Ria's asking, who are strategic partners? Would you define that group? Yes, I think strategic partners are affiliate schools. So if you have a school that you feed into, or if you have a school that feeds into you, that's a strategic partner. And by the way, if you don't, it's not a bad idea to just open up Google Maps and see who's close. because you might have a Montessori school that's just outside of your radius, and they're just outside of you're just outside of theirs. And pick up the phone and give them a shout and say, hey, look, if you end up getting any families that are a little too far for you, or that are mission appropriate, but for whatever reason not a right fit, if you wouldn't mind sending them to me, I'll send the ones that we get to you, because chances are you're receiving some of those inquiries. So if you spent, I'd say 2 hours, period, just carve out 2 hours one day and start calling around community centers. Anybody that services the same prospects you service. There's a lot of, like the, trying to think of the example that I had recently, but one of our schools has a really close relationship with one of those painting, fun little niche things kids paint, like clay and vases and whatever. And they put up a poster in the little corkboard, and they got a referral from it. Somebody said, oh yeah, I saw the Montessori school. Those are really easy relationships to build, and you'll usually find that those people are very receptive. So, cool cuts for kids, the haircut place, like it's okay to reach out to them and just let them know. And this is going to be a recurring theme in my talk. Be transparent and honest about your struggles. You can say, hey, I'm a Montessori school. I've been in the community for 25 years. We're struggling with admissions. That's okay to say. I think that resonates with people more than, trying to put up a front that's a little less, a little disingenuous. And it also maybe justifies some of your outreach. So I know that cold outreach is nobody's comfort zone, but I think that narrative should make it hopefully just a little bit easier and more accessible. Once we have our list, the very next thing that we need to do is we needed to define our pipeline. And the pipeline, picture a funnel in your mind's eye. The pipeline moves from top to bottom. So if you want to, and I've seen this done often, you can use sticky notes. So the first stage in the pipeline here is inquiry. And, here's the Jones family and the Smith family. And then the next stage in the pipeline is tour. And when the Jones move from inquiry to tour, you move their sticky note down into this column. I have listed here the pipeline that we've defined for our members. Your pipeline can be different. It can be more robust. It can be simpler. Remember that this is recorded, so don't worry about furiously taking notes. I also have a special gift that I'm going to offer everybody on this call at the end of the call. I'm really excited about it, and it has to do with the pipeline. You want to keep track of where prospects are in your pipeline. And you also want to make sure that you're following up on a regular basis. That will also be a recurring theme. Statistically, 80% of all conversions happen after the 8th touch point. 80% of all conversions happen after the 8th touch point. What that means is 80% of all purchases, 80% of all new customers are going to ultimately cross the line, so to speak, after you've spoken to them or touched them 8 times. And you need to make sure that you're manufacturing those touch points, because if not, they can happen organically, but it takes much, 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 much longer. Knowing where people are in your pipeline helps you manufacture those touch points. A new parent is going to receive different communication and information than somebody who's currently scheduled their tour, who will receive different information than somebody who's completed a tour. Number one. Number two, you want to never leave somebody to their status. So for instance, a mistake that I see most of our new schools that sign up with NITO, a mistake that I see them make is when somebody schedules a tour, they stop talking to them. So there's a lot of love and affection going on. We're sending them emails and we're providing them with information, and we're being thought leaders, and then they schedule a tour and then we shut up. And then we don't talk to them again until they come into the school. And that break of cadence, that break of continuity is actually, it's to your detriment. So the thing to do there is to just change what you're saying. When you have a new parent inquiry, the conversation is probably about, hey, I want you to come into our school. After they've scheduled a tour, now we're sort of justifying that decision. And now it's, hey, here's what you might be able to expect when you come in for the tour, which, by the way, is an amazing piece of content for you to write. It only takes a few minutes, but if you can help break down some of the barriers in a parent's mind as to what it is that they're going to see or experience, especially right now, because many of us are doing virtual tours. Let them know there should be no surprises. You can say, we're going to go over this. I'm going to ask you these questions. I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to show you this. And at the end, we're going to allow you to, ask any questions you may have of us. If you define that process, you're going to find that you have a much better equipped parent. That's number one. Number two is, one of the things that we've done for our schools is we've built a pre-tour questionnaire. And It's 5 questions, and we ask them things like, why are you shopping for a Montessori school? What about our school appealed to you? As a matter of fact, you know what? Let me give that to you too. That's in our assets, so I'm just going to make a note for myself here. I think that's going to be of benefit to everybody. And the questions that we've chosen they're chosen because they actually help reinforce the parent's decision in their mind. There's something of a Trojan horse, if you don't mind me phrasing it that way. So let's pull this up here. Here's our resources section. And we have our pre-tour questions for parents. And I'll add this to our list of resources. But the first question is, if you don't mind telling us in just a few sentences, what's most important to you in a school? This helps equip you when somebody comes into tour, because you now get to speak to their pain points. One of the mistakes that you can make is to just run through the same template. You've been to your school, every single day for however many years. And so it's really easy for you to get rote and routine. I have this problem, by the way. If anybody's ever been on a sales call with me when I'm explaining needle marketing, I just zip through everything and assume that you know all the stuff. And clearly that's a flawed model. So asking them, hey, what's important to you? It lets you reframe the tour, and you can constantly speak to the things that they've listed as their pain points. And then I have some notes here as to how to use these questions. Question number 2 is, every family is unique. Do you have any specific concerns or fears that I can help address? Now, I use this term by intention. You want people to feel comfortable voicing their fears. And if you ask for them specifically, they tend to open up about them a little bit more. And while fear is a strong term, it, I think, will yield better results than trying to soften that. You never want to avoid objections. And I'm going to get to that in my presentation too. You always want to lean into objections as much as possible, because it helps create a more trusting and an honest relationship between you and your prospect. Question number 3, trying to find the perfect school for your child can be a daunting process. What criteria will you use to make your decision? Now, here's what's interesting is most parents probably haven't thought of this overtly. It's not something that's at the top of their mind, but it is something that lives somewhere beneath. And when you ask for this, what's nice is they're giving you the list of things that you need to win, which is really important. And they're also letting you know where any misalignment happens. If they say, hey, we want a really strict curriculum and our child needs to have a ton of homework. And, if they start listing these things, now you know how to sort of play those games when they open in on the tour. It also gives you opportunity to follow up, which is critically important. Remember, 8 touches. You have to touch them 8 times. And that just doesn't mean sending an email. That means connecting 8 different times. Question number 4. We know you have a lot of options to choose from. What specifically attracted you to our school? Now, this helps you obviously in knowing what it is that they're interested in. But the other thing that it does is it's a psychological reframe, because you're having them list the things that they like about you. So they're basically reinforcing. People don't like being wrong about their decisions. So you're just asking them to reinforce the reasons that they're coming into your school, which is reminding them why you're a good fit. And then question number 5, and by the way, 5 is almost too many. So you want to, it's 5 or less on these pre-tour questions. As Montessorians, we like to approach child development holistically. Do you have any specific goals for your child that you would like to share? And this is also, again, really important, because it's going to help you figure out who's mission appropriate, any concerns that they have, and how to properly contextualize these tours to their children. If you're using our Montessori CRM, this is built into the CRM as a survey, so they can actually fill this out as a survey. I'm going to make a note here to share this with the group before I forget. Forgive me for just a moment. Got it. So where were we? Oh, make sure you're speaking to them on a continuous basis. Don't break communication or continuity. The other thing that Montessorians are afraid of generally is, oh, I don't want to bug people. I hear that a lot. Oh, I don't like it when people email me, so I don't want to email people. And honestly, I think you're wrong. I think you like it when people email you with value. For instance, everybody on this call opened my email when I sent an invitation to this town hall, and has been opening our email with every subsequent invitation. So as long as you're providing them with value on a topic that they're interested in, and nobody can be interested in any topic more than their children, then you should expect that they want to hear from you. Try to assume the frame of value provider. You're the thought leader and you're giving them something. And come up with communication sequences for every single stage. and make sure that it changes. Once somebody's completed a tour, now we're sending them things like, here's alumni profiles, here are testimonials. Once they've submitted the application, you can say, hey, here's what you can expect. Here's how long it takes. Here's how we make our decisions. Once the application's accepted, you can tell them, hey, here's, the next steps. Here's what the first week looks like. Matt has an amazing email in our resources section. I think it's called the first 7 days. And by the way, every day for 7 days, he has his guide take an image of new students and send it to their parents just to soften some of that separation anxiety. So know what your pipeline looks like, and find a way to visually track where your prospects are inside of that pipeline. And I've got some questions. Let me pause for those real quick. Christina says she has to drop around 2, but she still wants a free gift. That's okay. Watch the recording, and it'll be available to you. It's not only available to people who watch, but y'all get it first. So, pays to show up. Thank you, Hillary. Appreciate you. And Tori says, do you ever add any questions regarding tuition? Yes. What a phenomenal question, Tori. So one of the things that Matt did for Bergamo, he had more tours than he can handle because I do his marketing. And some of the objections that would come up during the tours were around tuition, especially given where he is geographically. He ends up being a little expensive for some folks. So what he did is, after somebody schedules a tour, the email follow-up that they receive gives them a list of things that they need to know. And one of those things is his tuition information. And what we found is, people would schedule a tour, receive the email, and cancel the tour. That's okay. If you have too many inquiries, then that's probably a pretty good filter to build up. Right now, because schools are struggling with admissions, I would advise against that. I think let's get them into the school. Let's let them see the magic first, because there's a reason that Montessori is going to be more expensive than La Petite. And if we just lob a number over in their lap and we haven't really explained our value proposition, then we're not going to be able to hurdle that objection. So at the moment, I think I wouldn't raise that as a barrier. But if you ever do end up in a situation where you're like, gosh, I'm wasting a ton of time on some tours that are just mission inappropriate, then that's a good way to approach it. Do you advise against having tuition on the website? I speak to that here in just a moment, Julie. It's one of the lead magnets that we strongly recommend. So I'll share with you some of the strategies that we have for capturing emails. Anu is saying, if making phone calls and sending emails is not exactly making a connection, then what is? Could you please define it very specifically? Yeah, forgive me. What I mean is you can't drop somebody in an autoresponder. Let's say that I have an 8 email sequence, an 8 email autoresponder. That's not 8 touches. Because if you open email 1 and 2, but you stop opening at email number 3, then I've really only touched you 2 times. So you want to make sure that you're doing things that actually connect with the parent. Monitoring your open rate, by the way, can be really critically important. But also change context. It's okay to move from email to phone call. If you can get them into the school, that's one of the best things that you can do. Right now, that's tough. So get them on a Zoom for a virtual tour. This might be out of some people's comfort zone, but text, SMS is really intimate. If you end up on somebody's SMS list, that means that you're buddies, as far as I'm concerned. And so depending on how your parents communicate, depending on how comfortable you are communicating that way, if they're on social, if they reached out to you via Facebook, if you connect with them on LinkedIn, I've found from an etiquette standpoint, it's probably inappropriate to request to be somebody's Facebook friend in a business setting. They can request you, of course, but it's not inappropriate at all to make a LinkedIn connection. And if you're in a very professional environment, if you're in a place where both parents are working, chances are they're on LinkedIn, and you might want to be too. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't let the conversation that I'm having here overwhelm you either, because there's a lot of little tips and tricks that I'm going to throw out. Choose the 1 or 2 that resonate with you, and then let's just stick to the program. So make your list, make sure that it's segmented, define your pipeline. And once we have our pipeline defined, craft your message, which we've talked about a little bit. I jumped the gun. We need custom messaging for every segment. You're gonna speak to lost students differently than you're going to speak to existing students, differently than you're going to speak to alumni. But have a message for everyone. I would reach out to alumni and say, hey, we're struggling with admissions right now. We'd love to find other mission appropriate families. You were such a wonderful fit. Do you have anybody that you could refer to us? And have something for them to do. If asking for just a raw referral is really tough, but if you can say, we're hosting this, open houses are tough right now, but we're hosting this webinar, or we have this resource, or we have this thing, like if there's anybody that's interested, please. And then if you can give them something, a PDF, a download, a blog, even a link to your website, I guess at a minimum, but give them something that they can just forward. And what you'll find is folks do it. they'll go to Facebook and say, hey, my son and daughter went to this school. It was wonderful for us. They're looking for new admissions. If you're interested, please reach out. That's not inappropriate at all, as far as I'm concerned. And that's one of the best ways to leverage your alumni. Start with your lost and existing families. I would reach out to existing families too and say the exact same thing. I'd say, hey, we're trying to increase our admissions. You're such a wonderful fit for us. I'd love to find other families that are just like you. And birds of a feather flock together. So you're actually going to want to start there because they're going to send you people that are just like them. They're also mission appropriate. I'd also start going back to your lost families and letting them know, we want you back. We loved having you here. We love your son and daughter. Obviously, there's some safety concerns. We don't want you to do anything you're uncomfortable with, but can we talk about your concerns specifically? And what you may find is you may have already addressed something that they're worried about. Brent had that wonderful airlock schematic that I don't know if his families have seen or not, but if some haven't, that's something that I would share. And I would say, hey, I just wanted to show you this. This is the thought that we've put into this system in this sequence. We have the video that's being created by the doctor that visited with us last week. You might send that video out and just say, this is one of the steps that we're taking whenever you're ready. So you can be very soft touch, but you can reach out to those prospects again. This is a sales tip. I know Montessorians don't love the word sales, but I'm going to use it often anyway, because that's really what we're doing here. You want a yes or a no. You don't want maybes. You want binary. And I know that feels really uncomfortable. You don't want to push. You just want clarity. And the way to do that, by the way, is to build scarcity. And the scarcity, incidentally, is real. You're not lying. You get to say, I have a limited number of students I can take. Before I go out to ether and start advertising to the world, I'd rather have you, because you're mission appropriate, you're a previous student, you're a referral from a previous student, etc. But I need to know, are you interested? And if now's not the right time, I totally understand. We can follow up later. So maybe is really difficult for you from a decision-making process, because in that little pipeline that I showed you, you don't know where to put them. You don't know where they go. So you can even make a maybe pile if you wanted to. I call it follow up later. So if somebody's not going to give you a yes or no, what I say is I kind of do it for them. I say, I totally understand the trepidation. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. In the meantime, I'm going to follow up with you and then I give them the timeline. I'll follow up in a week. I'll follow up in a month. I'll follow up in a year. But I let them know when I'm coming back. And what that does is it actually seeds a little bit of doubt in their mind. Now there's the fear of missing out. Like, gosh, if they fill up before the month end, then I might not be able to enroll. So aim for a yes or a no. If you get a no, find out why. Know what your objections are and dig deep here. Don't take anything personal, but people are going to say, whatever it is, you want to make sure that it's the real reason and it's not the sugar coated. And what I tell people is, hey, for my own professional development, just so I know and I can be better next time, would you mind sharing what it is that I could have done better, or the reason that you chose not to move forward? And you'll get some pretty honest answers here. This equips you for subsequent conversations. It also equips you to come back. You might be able to come back and say, I know that you didn't enroll for this reason. We've actually been able to resolve that. Are you interested now? Track your progress with every individual prospect. That sticky note thing that I showed you, one of the things that you could do if you wanted to is on the back of the sticky note, you just have a little note in a pencil or whatever saying, this date, spoke to this person at this time, interested in these ways. Keep notes on their specific situation and circumstance too. A mom is sick, so they're worried about starting anything until that's resolved. That way you can constantly bring those things back up. It's hard to maintain a relationship with a few hundred people the way that you have to do it at school. So it's okay to take notes on those things that you would normally otherwise remember if you had a more personal relationship. Follow up. We need 8 touches. So you constantly are following up. This is somebody's job, incidentally. I know that you already have way too much to do. And it's no fun to hear like, oh gosh, here's more stuff that I have to do. But admissions might be the most important thing that you have to do right now. So I strongly recommend prioritizing this. If you have an admissions director, that's great. But if you don't, then somebody needs to pick up this mantle and own it. And following up with these parents is critically important, because if you don't, KinderCare will. And they're really good at that. And we've all seen it. They've got, a batch and blast, buy, die, or unsubscribe, melt phones, call center somewhere. And they're just constantly in front of these parents. Some parents sign up with them just because it's easier to get them off their back. Some pro tips. Address objections directly. Matt did this, I think, phenomenally well. In some of the resources that we've shared in the town hall, he's got some of the letters that he sent out to parents. I think what Brent shared with his explanation of how they've broken down the school. I think Christy's presentation, I think she did this phenomenally well. it's no secret that we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's no secret that people are getting sick. It's no secret that people are scared. So we shouldn't avoid those conversations. Instead, you can go right out in front and say, this is what we're doing. This is how we're addressing it. These are the steps that we're taking. I'm going to skip to my bottom point because it's probably more relevant here at the top, but assume as much of the risk as you can, and then be clear about the risk. Be clear about where the risk exists for your parents. And here's what I mean. I think it was Christy, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but what Christy did I thought was so brilliant from a marketing perspective. I can't speak from a Montessori perspective, obviously, but from a marketing perspective, she said, here's our annual tuition, and it was 10 or 20% cheaper. And if you're worried about a resurgence in, with the pandemic or another closure, then you can choose to go monthly, but it's a little more expensive. Now, what you just did is you brought the decision and you gave it to the parent, and you gave them this binary option, and you let them know, we'll assume the risk here if you would like, but it's going to cost a little bit more for obvious reasons, or you can assume the risk and there's some cost savings to you. And having that conversation up front, while it may be a little uncomfortable, it saves you from having, the refund conversation later, A, because you've managed expectations, but B, you've also kind of checked that box in the parent's mind. So instead of them walking away wondering like, wow, I wonder how friendly these folks are going to be if there's another COVID thing, you're just right out in front of it and saying, we call it in marketing, putting your skunks on the table. This is the situation. COVID is actually more expensive for us to manage. We've had to purchase more materials. We have smaller class sizes, more teachers. In order for us to afford to keep our doors open, these are the decisions we've had to make. Use content to provide value. If you're a member of Nido, we have 2.5 years worth of epic content, if you don't mind me saying. Here's the best part about using content. You don't need to use your own content. You can go out and find links to things that you really like. Hey, here's a video that I thought you'd really enjoy. I know math was a concern of yours, and I wanted to explain the way that Montessorians approach math. So here's a video I found on YouTube on Montessori math. That's a great way to follow up with a new prospect. After somebody takes a tour, after somebody is a new inquiry, after somebody downloads your tuition rates, whatever it is, find a way to follow up. But following up and saying, hey, just checking in, do you want to buy from me now? That's less effective than, oh, by the way, Kimberly, I know that you were interested in this. I found this resource specifically for you, and I'd love to know what you think about it. People have to respond to that. Most people aren't rude enough to ignore that type of follow-up. So use content to provide value. It also does something. It positions you as a thought leader. You've diagnosed their situation and you're prescribing. And the more you can move into that scenario, that sort of relationship-based construct, the more acclimated they're going to get to listening to what you have to say. So when you finally come to them and say, hey, you know what? I think we're a great fit. I'd love to have your children at my school. That means more to them than just somebody trying to sell them something, because you're listening, you're understanding their concerns, you're diagnosing, you're prescribing. So use content, and it doesn't have to be your own content. That's the best thing about the internet, is there's just this amazing wealth of content out there. As a matter of fact, using off-site content, it makes you the source of the source. Now you're not being self-serving. You're just saying, hey, there's this really amazing piece of content that's available, and we wanted to make sure that you had access to it. Heidi's saying terrific resources on the Nido website. You can also request graphic design support. Oh, thank you, Heidi. I appreciate you. Yeah, if you're one of our members, any of the resources that you want rebranded with your school, we'll slap your brand on it and reskin it as well. Assume the paradigm that you're always giving. Forgive me for pausing. In the marketing world now, all of the power is in the consumer's hands, which is really interesting. They have every option available to them. So the only way to approach people is to give. I call it bookending your giving. I like to give first. So here's value. And then on the other end of the value, it's like, here's value. And by the way, if you're interested, please do the thing that I want you to do. So, here's a phenomenal article I'd love to see on my virtual tour. And then when they come in for the virtual tour, the other thing that I like to do, and you'll see us do this with Nido all the time, is I give again, but it's an unexpected gift. So if you ever take me up on an offer, if I ever say, hey, here's this widget, it's $7 for the widget, and you buy the widget, I'm also going to give you the widget and the sprocket, or the widget and a course on how to use the widget. And what you're doing is you're acclimating people to receive more from you, and it excites them, because the next time you make an offer, you're like, oh, Lisa gave me this thing last time. I wonder what she's going to give me the next time I opt in. So, it's a little Pavlov's dog-esque, but it's done in a really good way, in a way that helps you empower your parents. And if you assume the paradigm of somebody that's giving value, it also gives you the opportunity to, I think, be a little more bold. When you're giving stuff to somebody, it's a little bit easier to call them than, if you're asking for something. It's okay to ask for help from strategic partners. It's okay to ask for referrals. This is a Ben Franklin strategy. Benjamin Franklin, I think it was in his autobiography. I might be wrong about that, but he talked about whenever he would move into a new place or build new relationships, he would reach out to somebody and ask for a favor, small favor. The new neighbor, he'd be asking for something. And what he found was when he did that, they were actually more likely to ask or to be friendly to him, and then also to accommodate subsequent favors. And the reason he gave is people want the opportunity to be good. They want the opportunity to help. So if you can go out there and just be honest, you can say, hey, I'm half of where I need to be to fill my school. I don't want to let any of my teachers go. I'd love your help here. And you might find some folks that are really powerful referral sources, especially your alumni parents. Your alumni parents, we're dealing with neighborhoods here. So your alumni parents probably know all the parents in that neighborhood. So it's okay to reach out and ask for that assistance. And be open about any issues or concerns that you have, which we already talked about, putting the skunks on the table. I'm going to pause here. Any questions before I dive into some of the more granular nitty-gritty? I was really pausing for water, but if you had questions, I'd have taken them. We're going to get tactical. Again, please don't let yourself get overwhelmed. There's a lot that I'm about to throw at you. Number one is we need to make compelling offers throughout our entire website. You have to constantly be giving. The way to make offers, incidentally, is to add a lead magnet. A lead magnet is something that somebody exchanged their email for. We need to be specific about our lead magnets. One of the mistakes people make is, oh, sign up for our newsletter. Nobody wants your newsletter because nobody knows what's on it. But if you say, sign up for the 6 reasons Montessori is right for your school. Well, that's interesting to me. Now, or take our quiz on is Montessori right for my child, or is Montessori right for our family? Some examples of lead magnets: white papers, quizzes, tuition documents, downloads, videos, etc. You can turn just about anything of value into a lead magnet. It can't be a letdown. So if I fill out, and we've all had this experience, you see something that you want, you fill out your name and your email, and then you get it and you're just like, oh, that wasn't worth it. So make sure it's of immense value and that you're fulfilling on the promise. Also make sure that you have a specific offer. I like one of our best lead magnets, actually the highest performing one in our resource center. And actually, let me just pull this up for you and I can share some of the ones that we have. But the best performing for us is 6 reasons Montessori will work for your child. Actually, that was the best performing up until COVID, and now it's the Montessori at Home Handbook, which may or may not be applicable in admission season, I understand. But here's the shocking truth about Montessori teachers. How can you not download that? Like, how interesting is that? There's another one, Montessori versus traditional. 43 short tips to help make you a better parent. Things that you know will appeal to your prospects. You're going to want to make sure that you contextualize it according to who your prospects are. If your parents aren't necessarily ultra familiar with Montessori, you might want to back up a little bit and just zoom out. If they are ultra familiar with Montessori, then you might want to do things that, pre-qualify, disqualify. Use your lead magnets to build your list. Now, this goes all the way back to step 1. The money's in the list. That's the rule for marketing. The money's in the list. So this lead magnet is you building a list. And that list gives you the opportunity to follow up with these people and hit your 8 touches. You can't sell to people you can't talk to. So these lead magnets aren't lead magnets for the fun of it. Whenever anybody engages with or downloads something from your site, they should go on your list and then you should put them where they belong in the pipeline. This also helps elevate yourself to the status of a thought leader, because now instead of just constantly asking, give me please, buy now, check in, download, whatever. Now it's offer, it's give. So you're constantly giving. And of course, make sure you follow up. By the way, I don't mind calling people, for instance, the tuition document. And this goes back to the question that I think it was Tori or Julie. It was Julie. Julie had, we recommend gating your tuition. So your tuition is on the site, and I'll show you the way that Matt does it. A lot of schools push back on this. I totally understand why. You have to live inside of your comfort zone. So on the admissions page, under tuition, Matt says tuition will vary by campus and program. Click here for instant access to customized rates for your child. And what that does is it allows people to fill out a form that lets us know what program they're interested in and what location they're interested in. And then we email them the rates that are applicable to that program and that location. This is what justifies the gate, incidentally. Hey, our tuition is different depending on who you are. Let us know who you are, and we're going to send you the tuition rates instantly. When somebody downloads tuition, if you're hurting for admissions, especially if they downloaded tuition and they've indicated they're interested in a program that you have openings for, call them. There's no reason not to. Pick up the phone and you can just say, hey, Amelia, I noticed that you downloaded our tuition. Thanks so much. I just wanted to see if you had any questions about Montessori. and immediately assume that the role of thought leader. Like, I just wanted to help you. I just wanted to help diagnose your situation. I think you'll be surprised at how many people are impressed by that. Imagine just assume the role of the parent. I think you would be. I would be. If I downloaded information and somebody said, hey, this is who you are, this is what you requested, this is who I am, and I'm here to help. What questions do you have? The tuition document for us is the extreme bottom of the sales funnel. They're about ready to buy if they want to know how much things cost. And so those are people that are worth following up with. We need to tell people how to buy. This is a catastrophic error in the realm of marketing. You see this on websites all the time. You jump on a website and it's kind of vague and opaque, and we don't know what to do next. On all the websites that we build, it's always schedule your tour. Big and bold. That's our primary call to action. And then using Don Miller's paradigm, we have our primary call to action, which is schedule a tour, and then our transitional call to action, which is the lead magnet. But your primary call to action is the #1 thing that you want people to do next. And after they schedule a tour, now you have to tell them in your follow-up what they need to do. It might be fill out this enrollment document. It might be, we need to schedule an in-home interview. Whatever your next step is, they need to know clearly, and it needs to be consistent. So after they've scheduled a tour, every single subsequent email they receive should end with, and by the way, when you're ready, here's the next step. At my agency, we created an infographic that shows people every step of the funnel. As a matter of fact, I think we created something for Montessorians. Let me just pull this up. Sorry. Let's go to our resources. I think we have a white label infographic for the process too. Here it is. This is gold. Parents need to know step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. People have to know what the process looks like. It feels rudimentary, and you might not like the design or whatever, but customize it to suit your needs. But let people know these are the steps that you're going to take. If you've ever been exposed to Don Miller's story brand, this is one of his most important notes. And you'll notice that every single StoryBrand website talks about the 3 steps, or 3 or 4, but the 3 steps to completion, or the 3 steps to whatever. People want to know that you have a defined process, and that they're not paving this new trail. So here we have, come see our school, meet the teachers, complete your application, join our family. And obviously customize that to suit your needs. If you're one of our members, drop your list on our designer and we'll create a custom design for you. But make sure you're telling people how to buy, what the next step is, because if they don't know, they won't take it. My favorite call to action is schedule a tour. Right now, it's probably schedule a virtual tour. I like to use online scheduling. All of our course material is free. If you didn't get that email incidentally, we gave away, this is the first time in 2.5 years, every single course used to be a second plane member only resource. We just opened this up to all of our first plane members. So go sign up for the first plane. You can have every single course here. It shows you, by the way, how to build lead magnets if you need to know how to build a lead magnet on your website. But the other thing that it does is it shows you how to build Calendly. Calendly is absolutely free to use, easy to use. And you'll notice that in only a couple of minutes, 2-minute video, 3-minute video, in only a couple of minutes, I'd say a half hour, let's say, you could have Calendly set up and running on your site. Millennial parents like to do things digitally, number 1. Number 2, you're also going to notice, especially if you're in a place where mom and dad are both working, your tours are coming in at night. So they don't have time to call you because they're not searching when you're open, and you're not accessible when they're searching. So give people the opportunity to schedule tours online. What's really cool about Calendly and a lot of scheduling tools is it reconciles with your Google Calendar. So Calendly will go check. You can say, hey, I only want to be available, Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the afternoon. That's fine. Then Calendly will say, awesome. So these are the blocks that are available. And the next thing you can do is connect it to Google Calendar and say, also check for conflicts. So if you add a conflict and say, oh, Wednesday afternoon, I have to step out for whatever reason, Calendly won't make that available to parents. So you're not going to, there's no sneak attacks. You can add windows and say, don't let anybody schedule any more than 24 hours in advance. Add a 4-hour buffer or whatever. There's a ton of customization you can create. We go over all of it in the course. The course is 100% free. Part of what I'm saying, and forgive me for being petulant, is there's no excuse now to not have online scheduling. You could have that set up by end of day today if you wanted to, and it's the most powerful conversion tool I've seen for Montessori schools. Online applications, same story. If a parent has to print something, I mean, it's shocking to me now how many people actually still have printers. Hopefully I didn't just offend anybody. But if a parent has to print something, I don't have a printer, my wife doesn't have a printer, my mom has a printer, but it's always running out of ink and I'm the one who has to fix it for her. So if you can make things a little bit easier for them, then they're going to be more likely to hurdle that next step. Also make yourself available. one of the things that, and I'm so sorry because I know some of these schools are online, but some of our schools now that we actively run ads for, they'll have like 2 days a month where they allow tours. That's fine if you've got a waiting list. If you don't have a wait list, we need to open that up, because you're going to have parents that are only accessible in the mornings, only accessible in the late afternoons, only accessible at lunchtime. Give them options, and then also pick up the phone. Make sure that they know when to call you. If you're the admissions director, put your cell phone number in the signature of your emails and let them know, look, hey, Ann, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. If you have any questions, call me directly. This is my cell. The minute somebody hits a PBX, the minute it's like press 1 for such and such, it just changes the nature. We all have that kind of visceral feeling we get anytime we hear a computer. So make yourself available and answer the phone, and most importantly, follow up. This goes right back to make your list, keep your list. Lastly, ask for the sale. You need to tell people that you think that you're a right fit. This is something that I struggle with. I think that it's something that a lot of our schools struggle with. There are sound bites that you can use. I stole one from a gentleman named Ryan Dice, who's one of my intellectual heroes. He's a marketing guru. And he does this thing where he goes through and he diagnoses somebody's marketing problems. And he'll say, oh, okay, Angela, you've got this problem, and this problem, this problem, this problem. Your website needs to be mobile responsive. Your Google Ads isn't performing well. Your Facebook page is down. I think the first thing that we should focus on is your website. Do you want help with that? And then he stops speaking. And that one line saved my life, because I'm a little shy when it comes to being overt with my requests. And I have a hard time saying, hey, I'd really like your money. But me saying, do you want help with that? It's the perfect segue to them saying, well, yeah, of course I do. And now I can say, okay, awesome. Well, here's how much that costs. We need to find the do you want help with that from Montessori schools. I don't know what yours is. I have some ideas here. They're probably horrible. We think we're an excellent fit for each other. I like that because it pre-qualifies. It's not just like, oh, we take anybody that comes in. Thank goodness you're here. It's, we want people that are mission appropriate. I think you're a good fit for me. I think I'm a good fit for you. And then the nice thing about that is it forces some level of reciprocity. It's really hard for a person with conscious, like with empathy, to hear those words and not respond with, well, I think we're a good fit for each other too. Would you like to move forward with enrollment? What's nice about this is it's not necessarily aggressive as much as it furthers the consultative discussion. How soon would you like to enroll? This is an assumption close. This one gets a little far on the sales end, so it depends on your comfort zone. But figure out what your ask for the sale line is, and then just beat it to death. Make sure you're using it with every single parent. Don't let anybody leave. The minute somebody you define that, hey, this is a prospect I want, don't let them out of your sight before you drop that line on them. And then be quiet. That's a really important thing. My dad talks about that a lot. My dad's a brilliant salesperson. It must have skipped a generation. But he says the minute you ask for a sale, you never speak again. And the next person who speaks just bought something. And get really comfortable with that uncomfortable silence. Because if you say, hey, I think we're an excellent fit for each other. I'd love to see your son or daughter at the school. And now it's getting a little weird. And you're a little uncomfortable. And you kind of want to feel that silence. But if you don't, they have to say something. And generally speaking, you're going to find that people are, usually going to respond in the positive. So make sure you know how to ask for the sale. This is, I don't want to call it a nit. This is something you already know, but we need to speak to it. You're already getting traffic. The benefit of being a Montessori school, especially because so many of our schools have been around for so long, people are coming to your site. Make sure you've got a quality site. It's so easy now. Squarespace is $15 a month or something. I've seen people do phenomenal things with Squarespace. If you have Squarespace and then an alumni, some kid that just is brilliant with techno gizmo stuff, that kid needs 4 hours to just really build out something phenomenal. Nido has a website offering, not that I'm pushing it, but Nido has a website offering on our second plane. We have websites that are built specifically for Montessori schools, and they're completely best practice compliant and built with everything that Matt has recommended already preloaded. Websites are fast and they're cheap. Make sure your website isn't pushing parents away. Think about your own buying decisions and your own experiences. People judge you according to what they see online. It's the world's window to your business, to your school, excuse me. So make sure that you're putting up your best foot forward. You need quality content. You have to have it. It needs to be mobile responsive because 60% or more of your traffic is going to be on a mobile phone. You have to have your contact information readily available. If I go to a website and I can't see the contact information instantly, I'm already frustrated. So it should be on your footer. Your phone number should be in the top right-hand corner of your header, potentially. You should have at least a contact link. But we want to make sure that your contact information is readily available. It has to be fast loading and it has to be easy to navigate. So if you have website problems, you already know if you do, make this a priority. And then the last thing I'll say is Google My Business. We have a course on this in our members area. This is probably the most important thing you can do off-site for your school. It's absolutely free to do. Let me go find it. Here we go. So here's our course on Google My Business. If I go search for, and Google's not going to give me Montessori school near me because I search for it so much, but let me do private school near me. These listings here are all Google My Business driven. So the Google My Business platform is a place that allows you to manage your local listing. And you'll notice that Goddard School, outside of having kind of poor reviews, has done an okay job. They've got their address, they have their hours, and the hours have been updated. The phone number, they have a description, they have a ton of photos. I don't love the photos because they actually kind of feel stock photo-y to me. I prefer things that are obviously more organic, and I could be wrong about that. I know they're a great big franchise, so maybe they're doing, you know, they're just have a professional photographer in there. But the more robust you can make your Google My Business profile, the better, because when somebody's searching for a school, you'll notice that Google prioritizes this listing above all others. So make sure your Google My Business listing is up to date, and make sure also that you've chosen the right category. We talk about how and why to choose categories inside of our getting started section. You don't always want the category that you think applies the most. Preschool might be the wrong category for you. Montessori school might be the wrong category for you, depending on what your market looks like and how acclimated people are to your messaging, or you know how aware they are of what Montessori is. So make sure that you're building your Google My Business profile. I want to open it up for questions, but before I do that, oh wait, sorry, Victoria has, no, Kara first. I would love to hear what schools are doing to welcome new families to campus this fall. I would love to hear that too. And then Victoria says, what is your recommendation on showing children's faces in your marketing photos, website, etc.? I recommend it. If you are a Neato member, you have access to our stock photo library. And as many of these photos, that's my son. So make sure you get image releases. But people respond, they resonate with faces. And this is there's marketing data that proves this. Interesting data point, that's something off topic, but the image that resonates with people the most across all verticals and all industries and all images, so not just people, but you know, things and places, but the one image that resonates the most is a 30-year-old female Caucasian brunette who's attractive and smiling. And for some reason, that's the image that humanity has decided is, you know, attractive, but also not, you know, intimidating or whatever. That's where people tend to, you know, of all cultures and whatever, tend to resonate with. Now, is that offensive? Possibly, yeah, but it's also data-driven truth. So, you know, let's change the world, but let's also not ruin our marketing at the same time. I think when you see somebody's face, you'll notice that advertisers are always using people that are looking straight at you. And you'll see this constantly in billboard advertisements, but there's people that are looking at you because there's dopamine that triggers anytime you make eye contact with somebody. So using children's faces too, I think for parents, it helps them say like, oh my goodness, that could be my son, that could be my daughter. So I'd say for me, I think it's advisable. Some people have different comfort zones as far as that's concerned. Oddly, and this makes me a hypocrite, when our school asked us whether or not they could use our children's imagery in their marketing, my wife opted out, which is weird for me to say because I'm the evil marketer, but she's also the boss of the family. So she got to make that decision. So, I mean, that just kind of goes to show you that everybody has different feelings as far as that's concerned. I'm going to pull up the gift that I have for everybody. I'm going to make a disclaimer before I pull it up. This is a difficult thing for us to manage. It's a difficult thing for us to give. It's an expensive application. I don't have the ability to support a massive amount of customer service inquiries. So I want everybody to have this because I think it's going to help, especially for steps 1 and 2, which are the most important steps to marketing. But, you know, because it is a free service and software, we want to help you. We want to support you as much as we can. Just given how small we are, it's going to be really difficult if we end up with this massive influx in tech support requests. So with that said, we have something at Neato called the Montessori CRM. And when I said to create a list and to build a pipeline, we're going to give the CRM for free to any Montessori school that wants or needs it. This is a significant value. If you just go look at CRMs and how much they cost, go check out Salesforce or HubSpot or Entreport. To our upper plane members, this doesn't include any of the marketing features. So any of the marketing communication features that you're currently paying for, it's not included here. I don't want you to feel like we're taking advantage of you. We're offering something for free that you're paying for. If, however, you look at the free version and you say, you know what, that's good enough for me and I don't need any of the other services, please let me know and we'll refund your money. But I didn't want that to stop us from giving this to schools. I'll go over this briefly and then I'll let you know where to go to get it. What's cool about this system is it's easy to use. At the same time, there are some limitations, and know that going in. Oh, Heidi's mentioning if a school wants some basic help getting started, I can assist. Heidi, you're such a gem of a human. I really appreciate you. Heidi's a guru on our CRM too, because she's been using it, so that would be awesome. Robin's asking if a family applies for the future, 6+ months down the road, how do you keep connected with the family while they're waiting? Robin, I'd have a long-term nurture. You could just have them, if you're sending regular emails, that's great. I'd put them on your email list. So we recommend schools send out an email newsletter weekly. We actually provide that content to our 3rd and 4th play members. It could be monthly if coming up with content is too difficult, but have them on that list so that they're just receiving that, that communication. And I think that's enough. Here's the CRM. When I said create a list, here's where you can go to create a list. So I've added 3 basic contacts here. Here's Qasim, my contact Qasim. And what's nice about it is you can house all of the parent information here. You can also tag them. So I could say Qasim, here you notice I've said Qasim's interested in the infant program. I could also say like one of my tags inside of my CRM is follow up, FU, and I'll say FU September. And now I know this person needs to be followed up with in September. The tags are nice. You know, we can come in here and say alumni. The tags are nice because you can filter by the tags. So when I said to make sure that you're segmenting your contacts, this allows you to segment your contacts in an easy way. And it also lets you know where they are in your opportunities, which I'll get to in just a moment. But what's really cool about this is you have the parent information, any general information, and then we have custom values here that I'm actually going to remove, so ignore those. But what's really nifty is you can track tasks. So, hey, I need to call this parent. I need to follow up. I need to send an email. You can track notes, which remember when I said flip the sticky note over and write something on the back? This is the way to do that. And you can track appointments. So there's a nice little dashboard here that lets you do just about everything you need to do from a sales perspective in order to really keep track of who these people are and what they're doing. And then what's nice is they call this a smart list because I can come in here and I can add filters. So my filter might be, where's tags? Show me everybody who has the tag alumni or elementary. And what this gives you the opportunity to do is quickly and easily see who lives in what section. Again, there are some limitations. It's not Salesforce by any means, but it's pretty awesome given what it is and the way that it functions. The other thing, and this is probably my favorite thing, is the opportunity section. I mentioned that we have our pipeline figured out. This comes preloaded with the Neato marketing pipeline. So let's say that, you know, John's family here is a new parent inquiry and they've scheduled a tour. I now can drag and drop them over to tour scheduled. And when I open up this opportunity, you'll see that it lets me see what program they're interested in because I've chosen to use that as my tags. I can see where they came from a source perspective. I can add a task directly from here. For our upper plane members, you can actually communicate with people from the CRM. We're not offering that in the free version because there's a cost to it for us. But for our upper plane members, if you're interested in, all of your emails and phone calls can actually live inside of the CRM. You don't need that for this to be successful though. So don't think that you need to upgrade for this to work. What I really love is this drag and drop feature because keeping track of where people are in your pipeline is difficult. And this CRM is going to give you the opportunity to have a list of everybody, know who referred them, what program they're interested in, and where they are. And then going back to Robin's question, if somebody's interested in, 6 months, what we could do, and what I'll actually do before this call ends, let me make a note, is I'll add a stage for long-term follow-up. And what you can do there is it'll be all the way here at the end. And you would just drop them into long-term follow-up and then maybe tag them with the follow-up tag that I mentioned. So let's say that it's John over here. We'll say 6 months from now, I don't know what that is, December. And so now I know just looking at this tile, oh, I need to follow up with this prospect in December. And I would go drag them to wherever it is that they belong. This is also helpful because it lets you see parents that are closed but enrolled or that chose not to enroll with you. And these are people that you can follow up with later. What's really cool about this system is you'll notice every time I pick up one of these tiles, I can define this as 1, abandoned, or lost. One means that they've chosen to go with this. Abandoned means that I stopped following up because I can't get a hold of them. And lost means they went with a different school. And once I log them in one, you'll notice it goes away because my setting right now is set to only showing me open opportunities. If I select all, I can see all the opportunities and the one that I won in addition to. And I'll set that status back to open. The CRM that we're providing comes preloaded with this information. You've got to be patient with us because I don't have the automation built yet to roll out the CRM for everybody. But I wanted to make it available because we were doing this call today and I wanted everybody to have it. If you're interested in signing up, the link is nitomarketing.com/free-CRM, dropping that into the chat. I'll include this in the link under our resources as well. When you go to this link, all that's going to happen is I'm going to ask for information. School name, information, street address, city, state, zip code. Once we've built the CRM, you'll receive an email with instructions on how to access it. And we've got a ton of, I think, really awesome help documentation on how the CRM works. The disclaimer I'll give you there is the free version doesn't include most of the features. However, there are, some of these are going to be applicable to you. I think the most important one, honestly, is just getting access and updating the basic settings. But when you're ready, please opt in. Give us a couple of days if you don't mind. I'm hoping to have the automation built by Monday that will just roll this out and send everybody the emails that they need. But my real hope is that this equips you and arms you with everything that you need to create and manage a list ongoing. You can share this with other schools. Please make sure that they're Montessori schools. Those are the ones that we're committed to supporting. I'm going to post this to the Maria Montessori Facebook page at some point, but I'm going to wait. There are going to be some hiccups. So please let me know if you run into anything that you're like, gosh, that's a catastrophic error, and we'll fix it. We're sort of learning as we go here. And then we've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to open it for questions. I think I've got some here in the chat. Heidi says you can use the CRM without getting into campaigns and decide later whether or not you want them. Our CRM. So if anybody's interested in the sales pitch, real quick, our CRM comes with a ton of pre-built assets. So when you see the robust CRM, let's say, for anybody who's interested, you'll notice that the menu just expanded significantly. It replaces MailChimp, it replaces Calendly. You can send out emails, you can create automated email sequences, you can do all of your scheduling, you can manage your reputation, collect reviews. It includes funnels and websites, which I actually don't recommend using because I have a better tool that I like, and it also includes automated triggers. So we can build like, if this happens, then do that sequences. So if you're interested in the CRM and market automation solution, please reach out to me because I'd love to talk to you. And let's get to our questions here. If you use only opportunities, that's a terrific tool by itself. Yeah, thank you, Heidi, I agree. This session was really great. Awesome, thank you, No, I appreciate you. Any other questions for me? Questions, comments, concerns, confessions? I'll stop sharing. Has anyone tried to compare themselves to the great school model to show you were doing? I'm not sure what that means, Brent, forgive me.
Okay, yeah, what I was thinking is you can't, great schools uses data from the states, right? From the state school districts and everything like that. So basically you don't see private schools compared to it. But what we played around with is we use Terra Nova on a yearly basis, okay, CLMS. And what I tried to do, and I haven't had a lot of feedback, that's why I wanted to bring it up here, was I actually took it and if you take just one piece of the great schools, I don't know if everybody's familiar with great schools, but it's used a lot by the Zillow and different, real estate type things to say, where should you go to school, right? And so what we tried was just taking the academic part is pretty comparable, all right? You can't compare everything that great schools would have, but you can take like your own, if you have your own data, from a standardized test. We took it and we compared it on the same axis and the same, kind of the same algorithm that they use. And for example, it showed us that we're, in like out of 32 schools in our county, for example, 32 public schools and whatever else, we come in like number 3, from our students' own, how they do on the test and everything else. So it's a way to take your testing data and potentially to do it. I'll put our thing up and let people who want to, think about it, do it. I don't want to make a big deal, but but we haven't really used it heavily yet because I think we're a little bit afraid to. But I'm just wondering if other people have ever thought about trying that type of approach.
While we're waiting for input, I will say that in our courses section, which again is now free, we have a course on cultivating your great schools listing. So if you haven't done that yet, you can do that through our system. I'm really hypersensitive, by the way. I don't want people to feel like we're pitching them on these calls. So I realize that's a danger. So forgive me if I've ever been bullish there. I try to only bring up the stuff that's free. Yeah, that's good input, Brand. I appreciate that. Thank you,
Well,
sir.
I mean, we aren't even members that are, I mean, it's something we've just used, you know, we made our own brochure of it that we've handed out during tours and things, but we don't even have it on our website yet because we're, you know, I'm just kind of wondering how sensitive it is. If people will come back and say, well, you know, statistically, do you know for sure that you're whatever? And, you know, I think it's solid, but it's the sort of thing that I'm just curious if anybody else has ever thought about trying to show how do you match up with the other opportunities that are out there?
Yeah, well, I think it's obviously a great resource if you're winning, if you're on the top, and then if you're not, you have to go in and, you know, figure out what it is that they're. I remember, I forget. Actually, I won't say her name, but one of our members, who's one of our primary advocates, had a poor rating with some accreditation organization, and so she called them in, and she was like, "Let's talk about this." And she went line by line and explained Montessori and how it's better than, you know, every other. And then when they left, they were, you know, first of all, believers and probably going to enroll their kids in Montessori school, but it flipped her rating upside down. So I don't know if that's possible with great schools, but I think it's a risk that Montessori schools run just because they're so non-traditional. Awesome. We're at time. I'm sorry. I meant to leave more time for Q&A, but I hope everybody takes us up on the offer. Really appreciate all y'all. Oh, we need a topic for next week. Anybody have any burning desires? I see you, Emily. Anything that we need to get discussed? Any thought leaders I need to bring in? Is there somebody that we want to hear from? Even if you don't know the person, you might need, you know, say the role. Like, hey, we want to talk to another attorney, or we want to talk to another infectious disease expert, or whatever. Let me know. You can email me too. Virtual tours conversation. Yes, ma'am. I've been holding off on that because Matt wants to do that himself, and he's still building his model. Let me check in with him and see where he is. I made a note to do that. So if not virtual tours, what else? What are we struggling with? If you could wave a magic wand and fix something, what would you fix? 5 things you must do before you open in the fall. I love that title. The problem is I don't know what those 5 things are. So if you wanted to present that, Emily, I'm with you. Details of nurture campaigns. So I'd love to dive deeper into some of the marketing conversations. I've always been a little worried that they might get too granular, but if y'all are interested in that, that's my wheelhouse. That's what I do. So I'd be happy to have more of these discussions. Virtual tours again. Heidi saying, let's get granular. That's awesome. That's great. Well, if you come up with anything else too, please feel free to email me. Let me know what you want to hear, and we'll just keep trying to bring value to the table. And by the way, if you want to present, some of our best presentations have been our members. So if you're just like, hey, I got something to share, I have something to say, let me know. And we'd love to have you. I had a couple of submissions that volunteered for the presentation that we weren't able to get to, and I went back into my email and I had a hard time remembering who it was. So if you're one of those people, then please reach out to me again, because I'd love to have you present again. We're getting a lot of interest in virtual tours. Okay, I'm gonna go poke Matt in the ribs and see what we can do there. Yeah, awesome. Well, I appreciate y'all. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next Thursday.